the opportunity. I don't know about you all, but I am blown away by the talent that's represented by these women here. So I'm excited to hear from them tonight. So we thought we would start off with some introductions. So maybe we can just go down the row. And if you'll start with, I knew this. Sitting in this chair. That's what happens when you sit next to the moderator. If you will share who you are, what you do in the marketplace, and something that's unique about your background, maybe relative to marketing or being a female in marketing.
Ooh. Okay, well, I'm Kim Baylor, and I'm UX director at Ally Financial. So we've got a lot of banks here in Charlotte. Thankfully, I found the one bank that has a super creative wearing jeans and flannel department, so I don't have to like a suit. I've been in that role for 6 years. And I think the one thing that's, I don't know if it's unique, but my path has been Ally Financial is the first time I've ever worked on the client side. I come here from California where agencies are on every block, not really a bank or not really another big company. So I've been in brand agencies and digital media agencies, and then when I came here, I was ready to just plunk myself into an agency, and then I'm like, wait, it was auto dealerships and auto companies and banks. So so it was shocking to be on the client side for once, but invaluable to see what it means to be on the client side and all of that entails. So when I go back to the agency side of things, I think I'll have a better understanding of how that all works.
Awesome. For us, it is her birthday.
The cake is baking in the kitchen.
My name is Gina Sheridan. I am with the Charlotte Regional Visitors Authority. So we're a little bit of a complex organization. We promote the destination for tourism, for meetings, conventions, sports. We also manage the public venues in the city, so the NASCAR Hall of Fame, Bojangles Coliseum, Ovens Auditorium, the Film Commission, the Visitor Info Centers. It really is 8 or 9 brands underneath the CRVA umbrella, and we are responsible for really creating the place branding piece of what Charlotte is working towards. I've been with the organization for 19 years in many different capacities, so I feel very fortunate to have really grown up, if you will, in the organization. I think from a unique perspective, I, for many years, was the only female on the executive team, and the next closest in age to me was probably 15 years. And about 7 years ago, I had shared with the team earlier, about 7 years ago when I was pregnant, our company went through a bit of a crisis, if you will, and we had turnover with our CEO. And so I was 10 months pregnant, if you will, and had a new CEO come on board. And I literally worked with him for about 2 weeks before I went out on maternity leave. And I thought, when I come back, I don't know if I'm going to have a job, much less who I'm going to be working for. And I was very fortunate that I did receive my promotion while on maternity leave. But working through the challenges of coming back to that all-male team, my son had surgery when he was 2 months old, so I had a very rocky maternity leave, and then coming back and really navigating the waters, if you will, of what it is to be a new mom, to be a sole female executive, to be going through the kind of challenges that we were with the company, has really been something I think has forced me to really say, what is my lasting legacy going to be within the organization? I have a department of 25, which is integrated across marketing and communications, and it really has established, I'd say, the foundation for what I'm able to lend to the team and to the female perspective of things.
That's great. Thank you. I don't know many people who get promoted on. That's pretty fabulous.
Yeah.
René?
Yeah, my name is René Fielder. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Sona Dermatology and Medspa. I've been with the organization about 8 years now. I oversee a team of 6, and we run everything marketing related for the company, 20 locations across the Southeast. So something kind of interesting and unique about me is my background's actually in fine arts. I have an art degree. I started out my career as a designer, so I worked in agencies and did a lot of graphic design work. And when I came to Sona, there was no marketing department at that point in time. And I applied for this job. There was a media buyer job, and I knew like enough to kind of fake my way through some of the interview. And then I was like, well, here's the 6 other things that I can do for you. So for whatever reason, they decided to give me the job, and I started building a department. So we only had a few locations at that point in time, nearly double the number of locations, added 3 or 4 new service lines, took lead generation from a couple hundred a month to a couple thousand a month, and built an entire infrastructure platform, marketing stack, team, the whole 9 yards.
Awesome.
And
we're
kind of made it up as I went.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. What do you do when you don't know what you're charged with? So we're going to talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm Kaycee Kalpin. I work for Premier Healthcare. If you don't know Premier, we are a healthcare technology company. We're based here in Charlotte, but we have lots of acquired companies and friends all over the United States. I lead a team of solution marketers, so we're a little less corporate communications and a little more salesy, I'd say. We're very closely knitted with the sales team in commercializing product, bringing it to market, understanding the market, and many of them are here today, which is awesome. And I guess a unique thing about me, I actually moonlight as a tarot card reader. So I'm reading all of them. No, but it's, I guess, more career-oriented. I have always been in healthcare. I haven't always been in marketing. I've always been in healthcare since day one, since college, really. I ran a governor's campaign who was very, very interested in helping Florida change the healthcare system. And I was a lobbyist in DC for 10 years and kind of helped to try to fix and formulate the ACA, really. And then I, just 6 years ago, got really into a marketing role. But we're all marketers, we're all salespeople, we all have a message to tell and articulate. And so I guess that's maybe different than others on the panel who have studied marketing a lot. But yeah, so let me know if you want your tarot cards read.
Awesome.
I'm Elyse Blouin. I work for Lowe. I am the Director of Digital Marketing at Lowe. So my team does everything from on-site marketing to SEO, to paid digital media. So that's paid search, display, online video, affiliate marketing, and then social, both on the engagement side and also on the paid digital side. So I lead a team of 30 people, approximately, predominantly women, interestingly, for Lowe's, because Lowe's is, kind of home improvement, so I'm not sure if you would expect that I would have a predominantly female team. So a couple of interesting things about me. I think the first is that when I had my first son, so I have 2 sons, one is 5, one is 9 months. When I had my first son, I decided that I actually thought that I wanted to stay at home at that point. So I tried that for a little while, quickly realized that, well, I love my children. Like, walks all day is not what's going to kind of give me the job satisfaction that I was hoping for. So at that point in my career, I actually was teaching at UNC Charlotte, so taught both graduate level marketing and then undergrad marketing. And then kind of took a step back in my career to get my foot in the door at Lowe's, and have been there for the past 5 years. So it's been pretty successful, a couple of years at Lowe's for me. And so
That's awesome. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit too about your re-entry into the marketplace.
Great.
Cool.
Well, last but not least, forgive me, I'm a little bit sick trying to make it through. I am Leah Perkins. I work with Sona Automotive. We are one of the largest holding companies of dealerships across the U.S. We own almost 100, and it's about 26 different manufacturers. So my ins and outs of the day is advertising for all of them. We have roughly a 60-40 split when it comes to our advertising spend. I own 40% of it, that's our core marketing, and then 60% is actually owned by 100 different dealerships. So they run their own budgets. So if you can imagine me getting on a phone and saying, hey, you GM, spend your money this way, not that way, and the next thing I know, he has a funny sign in the front of his dealership, maybe some balloons. That is not what I told him to do. So that's kind of the ins and outs of my day. We are a digital first company, but we also do offline marketing when there's a requirement for it. And my background is omnichannel, so I'm able to go from offline to online based on the need that is seen through the data and the metrics. So it's a really unique company. Some fun things about me is that I grew up in the agency world. That's where my first foot was, and then I went to client side. I have never worked in the same industry twice. Most people don't say that, so I'm kind of like a mutt. I tend to say that marketing is my blood, but I can do it anywhere. So I'm just really unique that I can traverse and learn new industries fairly quickly. As long as you know the core of what you do, you're able to do it anywhere that you want to, is kind of my philosophy. And I've done international marketing. I've done now in the national. I chose that specifically because of my children, that I wanted to be more present for them. I did international for about 4 years, and that was kind of amazing, but also rocky. I have, up until now, I've never held a job that existed before. So every job I've ever had, I created. And it's really kind of a cool thing to say, because not only did I find a niche within the companies that were required or needed, I saw it, I showed them how I was valuable in that way, and then I expounded on it and built teams out of it. And so it's just been a really good, fun ride, and my current company is kind of awesome, so just really excited to see where it continues to go, and my 1 year is actually Friday, so yeah, almost my birthday. Don't send her though.
Awesome.
I've got the whole month.
Yeah.
That's the only way to celebrate. Well, and I'm just going to say too, the acoustics in the room are great, but we need to increase our volume just slightly. Can you guys hear us okay? Or a little bit louder? Okay. Awesome. All right, so I'm going to start with a light question. Light, and then we'll get into some deeper. Is that cool? Okay. So, as a female marketer, what interesting trends in marketing are you guys seeing in 2019? We'll just go down the line for this question.
Storytelling. I am so in love with storytelling and new ways to connect with folks. When I started in marketing, it was very much here's a campaign, here's what we got to say, here's what we got to promote, right? It was promotional, and there's just such a cool new emphasis on the longer story, more emotive connection points with customers, and I love it. I see it everywhere. I see it cross-channel, which is really fun and fresh. So that's where my headspace has been. That's what I love about marketing right now.
Even if you are a professional, I'm going to twist it to talk a little bit about what I want to talk to answer your question.
Absolutely.
So trend-wise, I would tell you podcast, although I am not engaging with them as a marketer. I am finding them fascinating, a way to tell stories, and what a lot of organizations are taking on. What I would speak to, and I think which is probably the most exciting part of what I'm doing right now, is the collaborative approach of helping to create the place brand for Charlotte. So understanding that we don't just look internally to who our customers and who our audience is, but understanding how it can extend to other agencies, whether it be economic development or other stakeholders or others that are just in the Charlotte community that are willing to speak to the Charlotte brand. And so I am very excited about a program that we are rolling out where we have the same tone, message, visuals that works for visitors is also going to work for economic development, and also is going to work for other platforms. So although it's not necessarily a trend, I think it's a very disciplined, deliberate approach to looking at marketing and making sure that we're not just looking at what's in front of us and understanding the health of the greater piece and how we can extend what it is that we do into other areas to be able to grow that piece of it. So I hope it is a trend, just collaboration in general. I know it's a little bit different for brands that don't necessarily interact with others, but seeing how you can increase the volume.
That's great. I love the consistency too. How about you, René?
I would say I'm really excited to see performance marketing starting to come into its own. Pay per lead models or pay per sale models are really starting to become more interesting concepts. Being in the lead generation business for a long time, having seen a lot of people that will promise you impressions, will promise you clicks, but now seeing marketers kind of get a little bit closer to that sales side and start talking about conversions. I think that's really where it starts to build more value for the business overall, and you really kind of get entrenched with somebody as a partner when they're that close to your sales cycle and they're that close to like that revenue generation for a company. So I'm really interested to see as, especially as PPC becomes more accessible, more people are doing AdWords right now, just the influx of competitors in that space has become an issue for businesses. I know for us, we're seeing even more competition in our space than we've ever seen before. So now how do we take that to the next level? What's kind of the next evolution where you're really more focused on that performance conversion piece and you're integrated into that with whether it's your internal team, whether it's an external partner, and you're really taking it to that next level and kind of blurring that line between sales and marketing a little bit more.
That's good. I like that, the conversion piece.
I'm predicting, this may not be a right prediction, but I'm predicting that we're close to a tipping point with what my mother would call big brother marketing. So retargeting and advertorials and fake news, right? And so I'm really excited about influencer marketing. I think that a lot of consumers are looking to people that they trust and that they know for buying decisions. Like, what should I do in this space? And is this a trustworthy vendor? And who's actually done it and proven an ROI on it? So I'm really excited about influencer marketing. I'm getting involved in Twitter. I got 50 followers. So I'm hoping that, maybe I can learn a little bit more about it there. But there are people on Twitter with hundreds of thousands of followers that are just listening to what they say and how they advise them to make decisions. So I'm pretty excited about that. I don't think it'll be me with 50 followers.
I think that we're in a time when customers kind of expect that you know a lot about them across all kind of customer touch points. So I think for the first time you're seeing a lot of opportunities to leverage data in a way that stitches across all of those touch points more holistically than you have in the past. So you see customers leveraging like offline sales data for online transactions. An example of that we're working on at Lowe's is leveraging kind of in-store transaction data to understand what a customer was doing before they made a purchase on Pinterest, to look at, what is predictive modeling that we can build to anticipate what those kind of customer journeys are moving forward. And then I think on the other side of that, that's exciting, is more opportunities for measurement. So I think, especially in digital marketing, measurement has been challenging. I think René said it. There's been a lot of focus on kind of vanity metrics in the past, and for the first time, I think there's tools out there that are enabling kind of true measurement of incrementality of some of the programs that we haven't had a holistic view of in the past.
I think I'll build on that as well. Attribution modeling is a big one for us. Yeah. So if the average person touches something 7 times, let's say, it could be an email channel, social media, my website, or my own platforms, and then it goes off to one of these 3PLs that we call our third-party platforms, how do I know who is actually, why are you buying? What made you take that purchase? And we do first click attribution within the company. Some companies do last click, and then let's say that you are our paid provider and you are the one who brought them in, but you're social media and you're the one who got the sale. Who actually gets that attribution? At what point do I get to say that it took these 7 things to make a difference? So Facebook's actually doing a bunch of testing right now in pilot programs. We've had the joy of joining them in that, and there are other programs that are joining that kind of front to achieve that grail, so to say. So I'm really excited to see that happen. I think influencer marketing is huge right now. We're seeing a lot of that within our industry. And then another big one for us is we want it now. And I want all the information at my fingertips. And in the car buying business, that's a good and evil in our world, right? Because if I tell you everything, you're going to go to the dealership across the street and say, hey, look, I got this deal. What can you do for me? I mean, who wouldn't do that, right? So we want to feed you, but on the other hand, we don't want to give you enough not to give us your information to get that last little bit to make the final journey across, or to make my offer feel better than the next person's. So we deal with that, and on the flip side of it is compliance. I feel like that's a really big trend right now, is that we've got people's data everywhere. You're seeing right now that by accident, this company got in trouble, or, you know, oops, we sold it. So, you know, it's an interesting thing. In our world, compliance is both don't be bad about your data, and then also how do you, with 26 different brands or manufacturers, how do you comply to everyone? So everybody's got compliance that we have to submit to on the regular. So who's owning that? How do we make it happen? Especially with all these different, you know, models and rules. And so I think really those are probably the big things that we're seeing in our industry.
Interesting. Now, Leah, how do you market yourself?
Terribly. It's funny, you were talking about Twitter and everything else. So I've kind of I've touched I'd like to say almost every facet of marketing. There's always something new to do, and I love a good challenge, and I love to learn. So you give it to me, I'll try. So social media has definitely been a part of that path, and of course we touch on the regular within our group. I don't directly spearhead it though, but I don't have Twitter, or I do and I don't use it. Instagram, I literally was asking one of my colleagues today, I'm like, how did you do that? Will you teach me? Facebook's about as good as I go, and you know, Snapchat is my son's favorite right now. Like those faces, I win every time. So social media wise, I should be better. Your brand is who you are. You should identify across all mediums. I don't think my LinkedIn profile was updated until I started job searching. P.S. That's the first thing they look for, so don't do that. You know, what I say about myself is that because my brand is me, that I'm always the person that I want you to see, and I'm always making sure that I encapsulate that person to you, and I won't talk how I don't want you to perceive me, and I'm very careful about what content I put up, and you know, I've always dealt with an executive level, so for me it's come pretty naturally to do it in those ways.
Elyse, same for you.
I think internally, I think the best way to market yourself is just through hard work and being confident, and making sure that you're kind of approaching every situation with data and with kind of a framework to sell in that idea. I think externally, relationships are probably the most important tool that you have to market yourself. So making sure that you're maintaining some key relationships and you know, increasing your network at all times, I think is probably the best way that I've found to market myself.
Yeah, same with me. I mean, I network. I've never gotten a job by like submitting an application online. I'm just a crazy networker. I keep in touch with people, so I'll put little tags on my calendar to say, call this person that I worked with, you know, a few years ago, to try to just keep the relationship alive and keep in touch. And yeah, I'm obviously a master Twitterer, so.
Ready to double your count tonight.
That's right. Yeah. What's your Twitter handle?
It's my name,
Okay.
so it's so hard.
Renee, how about you? How do you market yourself?
I mean, I would say for me, I once made a New Year's resolution to try and network more because I'm not good at it. It's not something that comes naturally to me. I don't mind speaking in front of large groups of people though, so if that makes any sense to anybody, put me in a mixer and I'm going to go stand in a corner, but I'm happy to be up here talking to all of you tonight. So I try and find opportunities to share what I've learned. I think the value that I bring is helping other people learn something new. So if that's somebody on my team, if that's somebody else in my organization that wants to learn more about marketing or more about what I do or how it touches multiple parts of the business, I'm always eager to teach and to share, and I think that helps people feel confident in building a relationship with me, and then also like they got some value out of that interaction, so they keep coming back.
That's great.
I think early on in my career, volunteering and joining committees and having opportunities to speak, I've become much more strategic about the opportunities that I have said yes to. There was a time, you know, that I was very much giving of so much of myself, but it allowed me to extend in different areas. So coming to things like this and being able to talk to groups about specific knowledge that I'm able to share has been really critical for me. It's really interesting because I have been with the CRVA for so long, And we are a very public organization, so everything we do is the freedom of information. It's public record. You know, the very first day that I was hired, I remember my boss saying to me, "Whatever you say or do can end up on the front page of the paper tomorrow." And so it has really shaped my career and how I've thought about my personal brand, because I think of the organization first, and I think of myself as a representation of the organization. I am not actively pursuing a job, and I'm not actively looking to grow my career with another company. So my personal brand is less important to me at this point in my career than it was earlier. But I think about how I represent the organization and what that means for not only the organization but the community and the city.
I love that. What you, Kim?
I think the way I market myself is by continuing to evolve my own personal value proposition. You know, every job that every role I've ever taken is literally like developing a new career, right? When I started, I worked in brand naming. I worked on the naming of Swiffer and Febreze and things like that. And I got really nervous after a while that I would be in brand naming. And so I jumped over to insights for a bit and got really fluent in that world. And then I got nervous that I was going to be in insights only. So I jumped over to digital to make sure that I could speak and work in that world, in mobile and omni-channel. And so these days, when I'm talking to maybe prospective companies or just colleagues and so forth, I can say that I've got a rich history and skill set that applies across the board. And I get really nervous when I'm hiring folks and I see a very similar role where they've just gone from associate to senior lead to manager to director, but it stays within this very tight marketing, you know. I love to see people that are just adding to the skill set and the talent pool. So I'm always very aware of just like a snowball packing on the new skill set, and changing up resumes and being able to offer up a lot of different stories about what I could bring to a company and a role. That's very cool.
Gina, I'm going to ask you a question. So, what challenges have you faced in your career as a woman, and how have you overcome this? Not to put you in the hot spot.
So I will tell you, you know, every day, you know, there are comments that are made, there are things that are not intentional that, you know, are said that I'm like, would you have said that to a man? Or, you know, would that have happened to a man? And I can tell you the majority of the mentors in my career have been men. And I'm very much, you know, I think I even said this to the team, you know, I'm not a raging feminist. I'm not one of these people that's like girl boss all the way, you know, it's our time, let's shine. Because I'm so appreciative of the men that have, you know, really influenced me, who have helped shape that piece. Mentorship has been incredibly important to me in developing those deep relationships with the people. I'm always looking to learn from people because there's always something that, you know, I can learn from everyone. And so the types of challenges that I have had really, you know, have been incremental and not just a, you know, how am I going to break through or how do I change who I am. I think one of the biggest challenges when I talk about coming back from maternity leave, I remember sitting there and having to think, you know, you either have to buck up and decide that this is what you want to do and, you know, do it, because I would sit in the parking lot and just bawl, you know, so horrible. And you would wipe your tears away and you'd go in and you just have to bring your A game, you know, and it was really difficult to especially go into a room of men and think, you know, sorry for the men that are in the room, but, you know, especially when you're breastfeeding, it's like, oh my God, I'm in so much pain right now. How can I say to a man, I'll be back in 30 minutes? You know? So bringing some normalcy and breaking through the taboo of, you know, really feeling like you can't be a woman or that I couldn't be able to say, you know, I have an infant right now and I need to step out because my family comes first.
Yeah.
So, you know, those types of challenges have probably been the hardest, but they've been incremental in relation to the support from men that I've had through the years.
Yeah. Well, and I love when we were talking last week as a team, your comment was, you know, about rising or shining as women. women, but not at the cost of a man. So I just loved that perspective. All right, René, you talked a little bit about imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Do you want to share a little bit about maybe some times in your career where, and you alluded to this in your introduction, where you were faced with a challenge, something that you had never encountered before, and you had to kind of put your shoulders back and say, I'm just going to figure it out, I'm going to create a roadmap and execute it. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, sure. So if people that aren't familiar with imposter syndrome, it's one of those terms that is basically you feel perpetually like you don't belong, or you're not qualified, or you don't have the confidence to go do this thing. You feel like you can't do it. It's one of those things that I perpetually have to mentally kind of like take a step back and say, okay, that's just you telling yourself that, like you can actually figure this out. I think resourcefulness is a huge just kind of character trait that my parents just provided to me. I'm thankful for them for that, and they always told me, well, you're smart, you can figure this out. And taking that and bringing that into a work context, into a business context, where I started in just being me and Sona, and I'd never managed anybody before, I'd never hired anybody before, I'd never built an inbound lead program before, I'd never built a position. All the things that I've done over time is things that I've never done before, but I've always been eager to learn. So one of the ladies had shared with me a quote from Richard Branson, and I'll paraphrase it. Basically, it's like, if somebody gives you an amazing opportunity, say yes, and then figure it out. Is basically the thought process. And I feel like that's something, and that's an attitude and a mentality that's really served me well over the years when I didn't know how to. I'd never, built a website or worked with anybody on that, but you read a lot, you do a lot of research, you look to see what the experts are doing, you look to see what other people in the industry are doing, you go and borrow from the best, and if you don't figure it out, then you've ended your path. Like that's, if you're not willing to try and do the research, to find the next thing, to take the next step, to keep moving forward, then you're handing that off to somebody else who is willing to take those steps. So I say, find the confidence on that. Know that it's somewhat in your head, but you functionally do something to make it work, and find a way to move past it.
I love that. And that, I feel like, could be encouraging to all of us, no matter where we are in our walk in our career, that, you can take on a new challenge by borrowing ideas from other people and just approaching the challenge with a fresh perspective. I love that. Kim, can you talk about some different styles of leadership that you've observed in women and men?
It's interesting. We talked about this topic in our prep call, and I've thought about it a lot since. I compare my existence in the corporate world with my mom's. She was a marketing strategist for 25 years with IBM, and I look at what she did. I don't know if she needed to, but what she did to be successful for so long in that role with that kind of a company in that industry. And then I look at my experience, and it's really interesting. I think we're coming out of a generation where being successful as a woman in beyond marketing means adopting what some would traditionally say are the characteristics of men, or men in leadership, right? So, and I'm making gross generalizations about gender, so forgive me, but it's for getting the point across. Meaning things like being powerful, being assertive, not showing a ton of emotion, having a bit of a stoic presence. And I think, when my mom was probably in IBM for so long, that was necessary. When she had me, she had tossed me into daycare at 2 weeks. I like to think it was because of me, but I think she was very nervous to leave her job for too long, or they would maybe feel like, oh, she's a mom. And yeah. And so I think now I don't see women in leadership positions trying to be that anymore. I think there's much more of a permission, not to just be a woman, but just be yourself, right? So, and I don't know that was always there. So whether you are stoic and strong and you keep it pretty business focused, that's you. If you are a person that's gonna, I don't want to say break down on a daily basis, but people like me wear my emotion on my sleeve. So when I'm really excited about a success, I'm really excited about a success. When I'm worried about a team member, I'm really worried about a team member. When something's going wrong with our company or we've taken a hit somehow, I feel that I take it personally, and those emotions are okay now. And I don't think they used to be okay, or they weren't considered leadership qualities. I think there's a lot more permission to just display what you're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
authenticity.
Yeah,
Authenticity, yes, that's great. Well, and was it Elyse? You were talking about how when you entered the workforce, you had to kind of change your demeanor a little bit. Am I remembering this correctly? That you had to kind of harden a little bit, be more stoic, or was that you, Leah? I'm sorry, Leah.
I don't think it was
So the way that I said that was very much for me. So I work with executive levels, mainly leaderships up to C-suite. So what I found was I'm not a meek personality by any means. I can boom in a room as well as anybody. But what I realized very quickly was people kind of took me at the package, right? I'm a blonde, I could be a space cadet, I could be kind of good at my job. They didn't really know. I like to wear trendy clothes, I like high heels. So it's mainly men sitting at tables, and when I was in international waters, it was mainly cultural differences. So when you're dealing with all those things, they make a great impact. So I very quickly realized that I had to know everything going in. I had to do a ton of homework. I had to be prepared for every question put at me, because if they saw me at this, I had to change their opinion of me. And so when I talk about stoicness, it's less about gender norms or how it used to be versus now. It's more of, I wanted that place at the table. I fought really hard to get there, and I did it at a young age. And I wasn't going to let you push me out of that table. So I pretty much, I did everything I could to be there and stay there, and I've done a pretty good job of it up until this point. Yes. So so yeah. But that would be my best advice to anybody in this room, is that if you want it and you want it bad enough, you don't let them say no to you. And that's figurative, of course, that no, but don't let them take you at the wrong face value. Don't let them make a first impression that's not what you want them to see. If you want to be the best, be the most knowledgeable in the room and know more than just the topic you're talking about. And remember how you affect your ecosystem. And I think that's one that a lot of people forget, is that I am a marketer, but I'm not just marketing. I'm customer experience, I'm sales. I touch every portion of our business, and if I don't do my job right, you can't do your job right. So those are some really big takeaways that I give.
That's good. Well, and to build on that, Kaycee, you mentioned that you're often the only female in the boardroom. So what tactics do you employ in situations like that have been successful?
Yeah, I mean, I've gotten advice from women all over the board. Don't wear that. Don't say that. Don't talk that way. Don't take notes. I get that a lot. Have you guys ever gotten that? Don't take notes. It's like, so this is how I learn and comprehend. I'm taking notes. I think it goes back to authenticity. Just be yourself. Know your skill set and where that interacts with your passion, and always contribute authentically. And I think that if you do that, you'll always win. I can't imagine a scenario where you would lose. And if you are, then it's not a good cultural fit for you, right? It's time to find something that makes you happy and you contribute value to the company. But there's something to be said for the odd person out, and I think that it's actually a great thing. Like, if you could turn your kind of what you believe is a disadvantage into a huge advantage, and communicate with passion and conviction, and you'd be surprised how many heads turn and say, well, she knows her stuff, like she actually knows a lot of what she's talking about, and then you're the expert in the room, not the woman in the room. So it's good. It's very good.
Elyse, building on that, I know that you manage quite a bit of females. So how have you managed to empower those females on your team?
Yeah, I would say not just with the females, but the males on my team as well. I think I don't just kind of think about gender, but I also I do think about it on a situational level. So kind of trying to diagnose where an individual is in the particular situation that we're talking about in kind of their development curve. So is it something where I can empower them to kind of run with something because they are proficient in it? Or is it something that I need to dive in and get a little bit kind of closer to the business because it's something that they're doing for the first time or they need help with? I would say from an empowerment standpoint, I try not to necessarily look at gender, but really diagnose the situation and kind of give them some coaching from that position.
That's good. I love that. Well, and maybe another quick rundown from each of you. What would you say is your greatest career accomplishment? Can you start? Oh, the greatest. You can have many.
Can I answer this on the team prep call?
No. I'm putting you on the spot.
I think that my greatest career,
That's tricky. She has so many.
that's not it. It's not that I'm trying to pick one out of the I think my greatest career accomplishment at the time I felt best about a decision I made. Way back in the beginning of my career, I was fresh out of grad school. I was looking so much to mentors and the leadership in my company, and learning from them and taking their direction and doing stuff. We were working for Nissan at the time, helping them on a new brand development for one of their cars that was going to sit in the Murano family. So like Murano, and then there was another car, and then Juke was down here. Are you guys familiar? Okay. So in the middle, they wanted a mid-sized vehicle, and they were going along the lines of what was kind of expected, what fit, what wouldn't cause too many waves, what was okay by legal and compliance, and brand was like, we can work with that. And I knew in my heart of hearts that it wasn't going to create the impact in the marketplace that they wanted. But I was young. I didn't really have the pedigree yet that I felt like I could take on this whole group. And so, but I knew if they went this other way with the naming and that some design elements that they would have a much bigger impact. So without telling my leadership and boss, I went down to Los Angeles and presented with them the naming option and the new brand development strategy that I thought in my heart of hearts would make the most sense. And my boss didn't know, and I was prepared to be let go. And they listened. And I paid for it on my own dime, and that vehicle is now called the Rogue. And they were going to go with Epix, E-P-I-X, and I knew that was kind of played out. I knew that it was kind of an expected name in the marketplace, and I knew the idea of Rogue would bring with it so many cool brand development, personality things, and I thought it would shake up that mid-size SUV crossover market. So I guess that was a big achievement. Trust your gut. I don't think going against what your leadership says is always the best thing, but it was I feel like if you have a gut instinct, just don't question it. If you're prepared to take, little the whatever happens because of it, then run with it. Just run with it. Yeah, that's good. Gina, how about you?
So mine would really be the growth of the department. So very similarly, I started out as the one and only person in our marketing department 19 years ago, and to look at the last 19 years and to see that I now have a department of 25, and that we've grown our budget just in one brand alone from like $200,000 or $300,000 a year to we're spending $6 million this year. And the one thing I would say, because very similarly, I have created every job that I have grown into with the organization. And I have so many people that come and interview with me, and the first thing they say is, what's my growth potential? And I had an employee that worked with us not too long ago who was just, it's been 2 years, where's my job title change? Where's my job title change? And I said, if you are looking at that planned path or that linear approach, or if you're looking to say, I don't have advancement until you're out of my way, then you're limiting yourself. Because I never got to a point that I said to someone else, what's my next title or what's my promotion? I earned it, I brought it, I developed it, and I made a reason for it. And I think that's one thing that I would really encourage, especially younger people that are coming in and looking at how do I step over someone, is to think about the limitations that you're creating on yourself if you don't think about what you can change, what's within your own power. I'm very fortunate to be part of a company that I've helped shape entirely. And I know it's very difficult when you do come into a company that's fully baked and you don't have that opportunity, but find the right culture, find the right people that believe in you and are willing to invest in you, and then prove to them, the worth of it. I think would be kind of my lasting legacy.
That's great. Awesome. René?
Well, if you ask my parents, it would be the fact that I have an art degree and I'm not starving right now. I'm talking about building the department. I mean, that's been a tremendous honor and opportunity. But I'll talk about a product launch. So a company continues to grow. They try new things. They acquire new technology, like for us, new technologies. And we were at kind of a point where we had plateaued a little bit, and we were looking at investing in a new technology called cool sculpting, which some people in this room may have heard about. We launched that technology, and it required involvement from everybody on the team. So I learned all about the processes of it. We built the infrastructure around the protocols and the internal operational processes. I got into the operational side of things. We built an entire sales flow for it, an entire consultative flow for it, wrote a lot of the scripting, wrote a lot of the emails. We built entire new ad campaigns around it. I got to this really cool beta test for Facebook at that point in time. And we hit it at such an incredible inflection point where the company was ready for that kind of growth. The service itself was really coming into its own. There was a lot of national advertising behind it. And it just took off to such a degree where we went from, okay, that was 0% of our total revenue to that was 40% of our total revenue. And in the matter of 6 months to a year, and just to be kind of the marketing engine driving that growth, driving that lead volume, bringing that into the center, seeing it hand off to sales, and seeing that sales process close those transactions just over and over and over again, and being able to contribute to that kind of just internal machine and internal mechanism. I mean, it was huge for the company. It took us to a whole nother level, and to think that the marketing piece that drove that was something that I had contributed to. I mean, it's something that I still think about. It's just the impact it had.
Incredible. Biggest career is we're on accomplishment.
Yes.
Okay. I feel like for the past 5 or actually maybe even 10 years, I've just been treading water. I got an MBA at night and worked to pay for it. I had 2 children, got 2 promotions and direct reports and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I think that's an accomplishment. But I think that it hasn't quite happened yet. I think I'm on the verge of something really, really big. And part of that is the team that a colleague of mine that couldn't be here tonight, which is a man, and an incredible man in my life. We've built an awesome team, and some of them are here tonight, but they are the most amazing women, and they are kicking butt and taking names. And we are on the verge of something really, really, really big and important. So maybe ask me next time.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what it is.
Elyse, how about you?
I think very early in my career, I worked while I was getting an MBA as a graduate assistant at UNC Charlotte, and I established a relationship with a couple of professors, one who became the chair of the department. And I think because of that relationship and because I had started moving into digital marketing at that time, the university was looking to bring on a course to talk about and start teaching digital marketing. And they asked me to guest lecture one day, not knowing that it was really a job interview. And I showed up, and I was excited to teach some undergrad students. I thought it was kind of cool. And then after that, I was asked to teach a course, and that gradually turned into a full semester of teaching that I did for about 6 years. And so I think that the lesson in that for me was that working hard in situations that you don't know could potentially turn into opportunities for you is something that could certainly pay off in the long run. And I think that I still am feeling kind of some of the impact of that move to teach early in my career, because I now have former students that work for me, or I have students that I hear about in the community that are doing great things now, and that's something that's really rewarding and something that I kind of continue to learn from. And so that's been an interesting accomplishment.
Yeah, very cool.
So for me, my last role was with Coats, and not many people actually know it, but all of you are probably wearing something that the company had a piece of, right, input to, which was thread and yarn. So it was a manufacturing company, it is as stodgy as it sounds. The men wear bow ties. I think one person had a three-piece suit. But if you think about it, selling style, right? If you have these really stodgy gentlemen, the selling of yesteryear is knocking on doors. Digital media is kind of this idea of what does it do? You know, your grandparents plucking at the screen going, what's going to happen next? So in North America, we did a pilot program called social selling, and I don't know if many people know what that is. It is literally the idea of doing what you do on social media and turning it into a sales tactic, but doing it in a way, going back to what you were saying, in an authentic type way, and turning that into a relationship, which then nurtures into this, hey, let's have coffee, and then that goes into, did you know about this product? Hey, do you want this product? And our selling cycles were 12 to 18 months on average, and sometimes 2 years plus, because everything was bespoke or custom. And how could I influence that as a marketer? So take what I did here and turn that into something else, and how could I change the way they went to market? So it was a really small pilot program here in North America, but it ended up doing really well. We really didn't have high hopes for it, and what it ended up doing, it actually about $100,000, right? Now, I came from a $1.6 billion company, so $100,000 is a dollar, if that. But what it proved was that if you could change the way you thought about your selling tactic, or if you could change the way that you spoke to someone, even in a one-case scenario, that's $100,000 you didn't have before. And if I have an 18 to 24-month selling cycle, look at how quickly I was pushing someone through it in comparison to the door-to-door knocking. And so what it really did teach this new way, and it influenced our higher ups to say, okay, maybe this digital thing has some legs to it. And I got to present it to the CEO of our company when he was visiting. I will say I was very pregnant. I ended up in the hospital the day I was supposed to present. I showed up the next morning to do it. Preterm labor is no fun, don't do it. So I have some really cool stories from it, but that is probably my biggest accomplishment, is being able to say that I made $100,000 for my company. So yeah.
Very cool. I love how each of your accomplishments came from either a risk or something that you learned through a lesson, so that's cool. All right, I'm going to throw out one more question for each of you to just answer as you see fit, and then I want to open it up to the audience if you guys have questions that you would like to ask our panelists as well. So what tactics, things do you guys engage in to skill up, whether it's professional or even specifically marketing oriented? Just answer how you see that.
I'll go. Yeah, I read a lot of blogs. So specifically, I typically read like Search Engine Land, Search Engine Journal. I read Mashable a lot, Forbes a lot. And I encourage my team to do so. I also kind of foster a community of sharing within my team. So if somebody else finds something that's topical and that I think is worth sharing, then I encourage them to share with the broader team. And then, I do a lot of kind of book reading on kind of professional development. So somebody mentioned something about, René, I think it was you, about the imposter effect. I recently read that book, which I think was present. And so I try to kind of balance the kind of digital media blogs with the kind of traditional media books to make sure that I'm staying kind of current and doing my own professional development.
I was gonna say books. Just to add on some other, I could throw out all the books that I've read, but
what's the latest one that you've read?
Ooh, I read a book called Herding Tigers by a guy named Todd Henry, and it's about managing creative people and how that's a slightly different approach, but how it still ties into great leadership principles and how you can help them be their most creative selves. The Power of Habit, Charles Duhigg, is an incredible book about how you can bring habit and structure into your life to be more productive. Grit by Angela Duckworth is fantastic around just sometimes the most successful people are the people that just stick with it the longest. It's a fantastic book. So I'm with you. I'm all the reading all the time.
That's awesome.
So I think reading, but the other piece is listening. and make a point to surround myself with people that are smarter than me continuously. Our CEO is one of those rare, brilliant people. And you always think about companies and you hear about CEOs that are just brilliant, and you think, what makes them different than other people? And I have had the opportunity to witness that, which has been really amazing. So just to listen and to absorb and to soak it up and to put myself out there to say, I'm going to learn from that has been really powerful on top of, the self-development stuff that you do.
I love that. That's awesome.
I would say look outside your industry, big time. One of our core values at Ally is to look externally, and I took that to heart, and it goes with our brand promise a lot, which is not to be another bank, not to be a better bank, but to be a completely different kind of financial services company. And so to prepare for that or to be inspired by what that means, I look at healthcare, I look at home improvement, I look at education, right? Because if you're going to stick within your office walls, the confines of that, or even in your industry, you're just getting such a small piece of the story, and you're really just playing leapfrog with others in your category. And I think, more and more, it's really just about users. It's really just about customers. It's about their life and their needs and their emotions. And that is a set of universal truths, right? Just not as it applies to banking and so forth. So I get most of my learning and most of my inspiration, creative inspiration, from things that have nothing to do with the industry.
Anybody else?
I agree with everything that's been said, for sure. Another aspect of this is just asking for feedback. And I've started doing this with some executives in our organization, and you'd be surprised how willing people are to give feedback if you can handle it, and I can totally handle it. But you also may be surprised what their perception of you is and what their perception of your skill set is and your weakness is. And so if you can really work on that, and you can kind of get in their mind and see what they're grooming you for, then you can just, the sky's the limit.
We actually at Sonic, we do something called the Culture Index, which is really cool. And essentially what it is, it shows two sides. It shows essentially what I think I am, and then it shows what might be the reality of I am. And it's really unique. My boss and I are actually the exact same thing, but opposite. So like we both sit here, then we both sit here, and then we both sit here. It speaks a lot as to why we talk the way we do. So for me, it's challenges. As I said earlier, I've kind of traversed industries. I've always stayed within marketing, but I've lived in a lot of different facets of it. I've really enjoyed doing something I don't know how to do. And I take that on wholeheartedly, and I find new people, I find new things, I learn new technology, and I make it work. And I think that's been really, helpful, and I think René used the word resourceful. That's kind of just the type of human I am, and everybody's got kind of what's great. But I also love, and I forget who said it, was surround yourself with other people that are smarter than you. When I do hiring, I always go into it and I say to myself, what do I need? What is the skill set that I think I require to be successful? And then I look at that person and I hope to God they're smarter than me. Because I'm hiring you because I don't know. And it's not just hiring somebody who's smarter than me, it's also going to them. And I think that's a really important thing, because people will hire that, but then not utilize you properly. If I hired you to do that job, I'm not going to tell you how to do that job. I'm going to tell you what I need. I'm going to expect you to get there by my deliverable date. I'm going to know you're going to do it because you know how to do it. And you're going to come to me when you don't know what you're doing. And that's going to be more of Sonic Automotive. You might not know us or the ways of us. And so I thought that was a really good one as well.
Yeah.
If I can add one more
Yeah,
thing,
sure.
I'm not like a big believer in personality tests and things like that, but we strongly use Strengths Finder. I don't know how many of you have done that, and it has opened so many conversations for me. So I think about an individual that I work with, and I'm somebody that needs about 85% of the information. I need to know that it's based on research, it's a sound investment, I'm ready to go. he needs 100% of the information. He needs to know that there is full consensus around the room and it's been fully vetted, and we found ourselves just, butting heads. But once we were able to use a tool like Strength Finders and to understand how people approach things, to truly look at the individual and to think, what do you need out of this before you think, what do I need out of this? And we literally approach conversations now, and I'm like, I'm about at 85%. I need you to come off, or he'll say, I need you to give a little bit more. But really just understanding and valuing the people that you're talking to and what they need out of it, instead of, blazing through and just trying to, make your point, be the one that wins, if you will.
Powerful. Okay, do we have any questions from the audience that you'd like to ask our panelists? Go ahead.
When you're planning your annual marketing strategy for the coming year, what process do you use to help your marketing stay focused so you don't run in so many directions that you don't do anything well and everything's just kind of...
Did everyone hear the question? When you're planning your strategic marketing strategy, what is the approach that you take so that you stay focused? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. And not run in too many directions so you kind of dilute your impact.
Okay. Anybody want to take that?
I could start. So we look in a couple of different directions. The first is, of course, we're going to collate whatever year it was. We're going to look month over month. We're then going to pull the budgets. We're going to see where the company is going. What do we need to be successful? Where do we need to place our focus? And we're going to look to maybe the bottom 15% to start cutting in terms of maybe that product didn't work or whatever it might be. But we're in a weird model that we're a franchise model, but we're actually not. We own all our dealerships. We let them run independently. So we have a core set of marketing that we approve, essentially that 40%. And we always go back to them and we say, hey, look, prove to us that you deserve to be at the table with us moving forward. If we're spending $1 with you, we expect to get this back. So they have to prove that value as part of the marketing process. And then at the core, we don't really use our brand, so to say. So everything's done on that dealership level. Are they successful? Are they not? Have they overspent their budgets? How do we reel them back in? Offline versus online, we go to performance data at that point. So, if you look at traffic, right? If the majority of my traffic is coming from paid, I'm obviously doing something right. But if I have a major dip in direct and I know I have competition in the marketplace, it might be because I have to start doing radio or TV or something to bring my brand back to the surface. So I'll look to that data to tell me what that person needs, and I can go to a larger company as well.
I think we have time for one more answer, and then we'll ask one more question.
I would share something that my director of sales says a lot that I think is applicable to your question. Is she always tells her teams, okay, if you find yourself at a point in a day you don't know what to do next, or you find yourself kind of feeling flustered, you say, is what I'm doing right now driving sales? If not, I need to stop and redirect. Yeah. So if you identify what are your key goals for the year, what are your major initiatives, and you find yourself kind of in that flustered state where you're not sure what to do next, like stop and redirect and say, okay, is what I'm doing right now driving my main goal or my main initiative for the year? And if not, I need to stop and redirect and just set that to the side and come back to it.
That's good. Do you have another question from the audience? Don't be shy.
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
Curious, as my wife and I both work in marketing, we're about to have our second child, the learning curve, decision making, kind of balancing act of every day, like I'm going to be the employee manager I want to be, I'm going to be the partner I want to be, I'm going to be the parent I'm going to be. Have y'all any input on like how you've been able to find the loophole in that?
Anybody want to answer?
I can try. I'll try. I think this is probably a point in your career where your boss is really important. We don't always. I personally love to challenge myself with bosses that are hard on me, just because it's like this sick thing that I do to myself. But to me, when you're at a time in your life where you need structure and compassion and some flexibility, right? I think it's probably a good choice to kind of think about being under someone that, and I mean, women know, right? Like we all know, you need to pump, your kid's sick, needs to go get picked up. I mean, all the women in the room are shaking their heads like, yeah, we get it. So work for a woman.
Yeah. Anybody else? I'll take that one too. I think what's really important is just making sure you're a supportive partner and you have a supportive partner. I think it's a daily negotiation in my house. My husband has a kind of fairly important career too, and I think oftentimes we have to juggle travel schedules, and sometimes we both are supposed to be somewhere at some time, and we have to make a decision. Who has to say no, and who is going to be the one that has to leave the meeting to pick up the kids, or who's going to go in early, who's going to get to go to the gym. We have these conversations on a daily basis, and I think what's important is that kind of you have the same goals, both on the career side and on the family side, and that you are balancing kind of both of your goals kind of within that conversation.
Time for one more question? Okay.
Any tips on navigating office politics as you get more senior in marketing?
I think there's an answer for
Well, I'm trying to evaluate if I've done it well. Sometimes office politics, good gracious. And the larger the company, I have found, the larger the company, the more it is and the harder it is to correct, right? Because you have to turn a big ship. Part of the reason I love that I'm on the client side right now is because I've learned so much about office politics that if and when I go back to the agency side of things, I will be so much more empathetic to my clients and understanding what the hurdles are. That doesn't answer your question. To answer your question, I personally check myself a lot. I find myself in situations where I find myself competing with teammates, or I'm feeling more competitive than I should, or I'm trying to establish this kind of unnatural visibility with, the CEO, or I don't know, just characteristics that aren't me, because I'm playing into some just dynamics maybe that have existed in this company that's over 100 years old. We used to be the old GMAC. And so I do a personal check a lot to make sure that I'm at least pulling myself out of, or have a good perspective on some of the goings on, or you're going to get sucked into some of the stuff that you don't like. So if I hear myself talking about things, or about people, or about processes that I don't like, I don't like the person I'm seeing, I step back. I do a real check. I think about it at night. I think about the person that I want to be, and I think about my larger brand in the company. I also think that just being transparent and not worrying about what a backlash or a reaction might be is, you're always going to end up on top there. You're always going to be looked at as the person that doesn't play the game, but the person that's trying to enhance the game, right?
Okay. Well, maybe we'll just wrap up. Each of you go down the line and say one sentence of encouragement or advice for our community that's watching and listening today. Not to put you on the spot. Oh, again! Right next to me. It's easy access. So many words. I can't stress enough how much being kind is important. I think it sounds a little generic, sounds like a bumper sticker, but being kind and being supportive of those sitting next to you, or those who you aspire to be, I can't stress enough what a better leader that will make you. When people are dying to collaborate with you, and they want you in the sessions that even you may not be a natural fit for, but they just want your energy and your ideas in there. So many more doors are opened to you in an organization if you are the person folks want to work with, because you offer support and you offer understanding and you offer an ear. So I think that is a soft skill that is really, really overlooked, being kind and supportive of your colleagues, not competitive.
I'd say I think you can't underscore the importance of individual relationships enough. We have an environment where all of my direct reports have a one-on-one on a weekly basis, and it's an hour that I absolutely dedicate 100% of my time too. There's no agenda on my part. They come in and I say, what do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about what you did all weekend, that's great. If you want to talk about 3 projects that you have going on, if you want to talk about your career goals or your growth or any of that, but to really individualize people and to place importance. And they can guarantee that I'm never running late for that meeting and I'm never sitting there going, I gotta go, got 10 more minutes, because it devalues the worth that somebody feels when you place in them. So really just taking the time and dedicating it to an individual and helping them to see how important that relationship is to you, I've found a lot of strength in.
Well, I may not have studied tarot, but I have taken some improv, and one of the big tenets in improv is always say yes and. So it's one of those things that has always served me well, and I encourage everybody else to take that attitude. And even if you just try it out for a day, just say yes and, where do you want to go, or how do you want to do it, or how can I help you? And it opens a lot of interesting doors for you. You learn a lot of interesting things that you might not have learned previously, and it's a great attitude to have.
I would definitely say lean in and lean on each other. We're all here because we're looking for something, and chances are someone's probably been through it, and someone's, been in your situation, almost a new dad, and we're all here to help. You may need me today, and I may need you tomorrow, but just lean on each other, and I think that's probably maybe the most important thing I can think of.
My motto has always been, the harder you work, the luckier you get. I think it sounds cliche, but I feel like I might not always be the smartest person in the room, but I know that I'm a hard worker, and at the end of the day, I think that that's what I can lean back on if I'm if I'm faced with a kind of tricky situation. And so I would say, work hard, and that will open doors for you.
I would say for mine, know that you don't know everything. Nobody dislikes somebody more than being a know-it-all, right? But then I pivot that to knowledge. You're as important as the knowledge that you have to that table, that group, that thing that you're doing. And just continue to learn. Whether you go and sit with someone for a day that you've never had the opportunity, a different group, go and work for 5 different areas of your company instead of staying stagnant in your line, so to say. I think you spoke to that earlier. That's really important. Go to classes, whether it be art or just something that continues to flourish your inner person and adds color or value to you, because inevitably it's always going to come back to your job or what you do, and that's super important. So I would say that that's my biggest piece of advice to everyone.
Awesome. Well, will you guys join me in giving it up for
Fantastic, ladies. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your insight tonight. Gosh, that was wonderful. Lastly, I just wanted to wrap up and thank you again. I wanted to recognize a few people who put their heart into this program. So Kim Button, Daniel Boyce, Christy Dukes, Charlie from Union, thank you so much, and Anna Bordermark in the back. Without you, this would not be possible, so thank you so much. To our panel, we have recorded this, so we'll have it available. Also, we are going to be sending out a short survey after this. This is so important for us to gather your feedback and how we improve our future events. Please take 5 minutes, probably won't even take that long, to provide your feedback. That would be very helpful for us. And we still have, I believe, maybe not. I think there's a few beers left, some drinks. Please feel free to mingle and network. Thank you so much. Enjoy your evening.